My wife cheated with her boss, transferred $300, $0 from our joint account to his, then disappeared. Now she's claiming half the property and threatening divorce. I never saw it coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, typing out a story about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be cheating on me with her boss, James. Honestly, it's like some twisted soap opera, but it's real. The thing is, I always thought we had a solid marriage. We had our fights, sure, but nothing that hinted at this level of betrayal. Until one day, everything just shattered. It all started about 3 months ago. Emily had been acting strange, more than usual, actually. She'd come home late from work, claiming she was burning the midnight oil or working on a big project. At first, I believed her. She's a marketing executive, so late nights weren't unusual. But then I noticed her phone was more guarded than ever, password protected, and she'd be quick to hide it if I got near. She also started dressing differently, more confident, a little more seductive. I'd catch her looking at herself in the mirror more often, fixing her hair, wearing new perfume. I also noticed small things. Her phone bill suddenly shot up with calls to unknown numbers, and she'd get tense if I asked about her whereabouts. But the biggest red flag came when I accidentally saw a text message on her phone one night. I was trying to find my keys in her purse, don't ask, when I saw a message from James, her boss. It said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. This is our secret, remember." My stomach sank, I froze, my heart started pounding like I'd run a marathon. I didn't even get a chance to read more because she snatched her phone away faster than I could blink. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I started noticing other things, her phone calls, her evasiveness, her nervous energy. But I needed proof. I started digging, going through her emails, her texts, her social media. I even installed a spy app on her phone when she wasn't looking, just to see what she was hiding. That's when I found the worst. A transfer of $300, $0 from our joint account to James's account. $300,000. I couldn't believe it. That's a huge chunk of our savings, meant for a house, our future. And she just transferred it like it was nothing. I confronted her the very next day. I caught her at breakfast, her face tense. I threw the phone on the table and said, "What the hell is this? Did you really transfer $300, $0 to James?" Her eyes widened and she scoffed. "Oh, it's nothing, just some business investment James convinced me to do. You don't understand the market, Greg. I was just trying to help him out." She lied so easily, like she'd rehearsed it. I couldn't believe her. I asked her outright if she'd been sleeping with him. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're so paranoid. James is just my boss. We're just friends. You're overreacting as usual." I felt numb. My wife, the woman I married, was cheating on me with her boss and stealing our money. It was like my entire world was collapsing. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see this coming. I started feeling angry, then betrayed, then just plain heartbroken. I thought about the future we'd planned, kids, a house, retirement, and now it all seemed like a lie. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so effortlessly? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, her sneaky behavior, that stupid transfer. I was furious but also hurt. I started thinking about revenge, about how I could make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't the kind of guy to just walk away quietly. No, I needed her to understand how much she'd messed up. I needed her to feel the pain she'd caused. So I started planning quietly, carefully. I knew I couldn't confront her again without a plan. That's when I decided she was going to regret this. She was going to wish she'd never crossed me. And I'd make sure she paid every single penny for the betrayal she'd unleashed. After I confronted Emily that morning, I knew I had to act fast. She was still acting like nothing was wrong, throwing around her usual bitchy attitude, insisting I was overreacting, calling me paranoid. But I wasn't about to let her dismiss what I'd found out so easily. I could see the smugness in her eyes, that little smirk she always gets when she thinks she's in control. Well, I was done being her fool. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, talking to a lawyer, and figuring out what my options were. I wanted to catch her in the act or at least have undeniable proof of everything. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, going to work like nothing had changed, but I could tell she was nervous. She'd glance at her phone more often, her voice would crack when she spoke to James, and she'd be more aggressive when I questioned her about her whereabouts. It was clear she was trying to cover her tracks, but I wasn't going to let her. One afternoon, I decided to check her email. I had a feeling she was hiding something there, and I was right. There were dozens of messages between her and James, flirty, suggestive, full of plans. I saw messages about meeting up after hours, sneaking around, and even one where James told her, "We can't let anyone find out, just keep lying and everything will be fine." I felt a mix of disgust and rage. She'd been lying to my face for months, possibly longer. That's when I discovered the most damning part. She'd been planning her escape, I think. She opened a secret account, transferred money, and even bought a new phone under a fake name. I realized she was trying to set herself up to leave, to start fresh with James and the money she'd stolen from us. That was the final straw. I couldn't let her do this, not without consequences. I decided to set a trap. I contacted a private investigator I knew who specializes in infidelity cases. We arranged to follow her one evening to see where she was going, who she was meeting. The plan was to catch her red-handed or at least gather enough evidence to make her admit everything. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband, that I had proof. That night I waited in my car, watching her leave the house, her new purse over her shoulder, her face tense but determined. She got into a car and I followed at a distance, heart pounding. What I saw confirmed everything. She went to a fancy hotel downtown, checked into a room with James. They stayed there for hours and I could see them through the window, her in a revealing dress, James looking at her like she was his whole world. My stomach twisted. I took photos, recorded the whole thing, knowing this was the ultimate proof I'd need. I felt sick, but also strangely relieved. Now I had her, and I had her exactly where I wanted her. The next day I sat her down again. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the plans. Her face twisted into a mask of rage and denial. She called me crazy, said I was stalking her, accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I had everything documented. I had the hotel receipts, the photos, the messages. I told her she could keep lying, but it wouldn't change the facts. She finally cracked, admitted she'd been seeing James behind my back, and that she'd transferred the money to him because she was planning to leave me for him. Her excuse, that she was unhappy, that I was a boring husband, and that James was the only one who truly understood her. She said she never loved me anymore, that she was just holding on because of the money and the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, the woman I'd loved, was throwing everything away over some guy who clearly didn't give a damn about her or our marriage. The betrayal hit me hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, like my entire world was crumbling again. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the lies, the cheating, the stolen money. I felt an overwhelming mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal, but I also knew I had to decide what to do next. I couldn't stay in this mess forever. I had the evidence and I had to think about my next move. The idea of losing everything, our house, our savings, my wife, was devastating, but I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it, not without consequences. So I started planning my next steps. I contacted a lawyer specializing in divorce and financial disputes. I wanted to make sure I could get back what was stolen, and I wanted to protect myself from any further damage. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter how much it hurt. I also began thinking about how to handle Emily, whether I should fight for her or just cut her out of my life completely. The betrayal had cut so deep, but I knew I had to be practical. I had to protect myself, my future, and my sanity. After I had all the evidence in hand, photos of Emily and James at the hotel, the bank transfer records, the secret email accounts, I realized I couldn't just confront her again without risking her disappearing or destroying everything. I needed a plan that would hit her where it hurt most: her reputation, her freedom, and her access to the money she'd stolen. I knew she was planning her escape, probably with James, and I couldn't let that happen. So I started working on a strategy. First, I hired a lawyer with experience in divorce and financial fraud. We discussed my options, and I made it clear I wanted to recover the stolen money and protect what was left. She was furious when she found out I had evidence, her face twisted with rage, calling me a paranoid stalker, a crazy husband who was ruining her life. But I didn't care. I knew the truth and I had proof. That's what mattered. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from Emily, playing it cool, pretending everything was normal. I didn't want her to get suspicious or destroy the evidence. I also contacted the private investigator I'd hired earlier. We set up a plan to catch her trying to transfer more money or make a run for it. I wanted her to believe she was still in control, but I was secretly preparing for the moment I could strike back. One evening, I got a call from the investigator. Emily had gone to meet James again. This time, they were at a different hotel, a place she'd never been before. I followed her, heart pounding, and watched as she entered with James, her hand on his arm. They stayed there for hours. I snapped photos, recorded their conversations. The evidence was stacking up. She was definitely planning to leave, probably with James, taking the rest of the money and cutting me out of her life completely. I felt a mix of fury and relief. Fury because she'd betrayed me so completely, and relief because I now had undeniable proof and a clear plan. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer, told her everything, and we prepared to file for divorce. But I also wanted to do something more, something that would make her regret crossing me. That's when I decided to leak some of the evidence to her boss, James. Not all at once, but enough to make him realize I had footage of their affair, proof of the money transfer and their plans. I wanted to shake him up, make him realize that I wasn't going to go quietly. I also had a plan to expose Emily to her colleagues, her friends, anyone who mattered. I wanted her to see that her secret life was about to blow up in her face. The next morning, I sent James an anonymous email with the photos and a message. "You're not as clever as you think. I know everything." I knew he'd panic, and I wanted to force a confrontation, one that would make her realize I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. Meanwhile, I kept quiet about my plans, biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. My emotions were all over the place: anger, heartbreak, betrayal, and a sick sense of satisfaction. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let things get so out of control. But I also knew I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her or James destroy what was left of my life. I was determined to get justice, to make her see that her actions had consequences, and that I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. In that moment, I realized I was done being the passive husband. It was time to fight back, to take control of the situation, and to make her pay for what she'd done. I was ready to confront her, not just for myself, but for what was right. I knew this was only the beginning, but I was prepared to see it through, no matter how ugly it got. The day I sent that anonymous email to James was the turning point. I could feel the tension building inside me, anger mixed with a strange sense of relief, like I finally had the leverage I needed. I knew James would panic when he saw the photos and the messages. It was only a matter of time before he confronted Emily, and I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. Sure enough, within hours, I got a text from my private investigator. Emily had left the hotel in a rush, looking distressed. James had called her, furious, demanding answers. That was exactly what I wanted. I stayed quiet, watching from a distance as she hurried into her car, then drove off. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I'd set everything into motion, now I had to see how she'd react. Over the next few days, Emily's behavior grew more erratic. She started calling me, trying to play the innocent victim. She'd scream, call me paranoid, accuse me of stalking her. She told everyone she was being harassed, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. But I had the evidence, every message, every transfer, every secret email. I knew she was lying, and I was ready to use it. Meanwhile, I met with my lawyer to discuss the next steps. We decided I should file for divorce immediately and seek full custody of any children we might have someday. I also wanted to freeze her assets, especially the remaining funds in our account, to prevent her from fleeing with the rest of the money. It was clear she was planning to disappear, to start over somewhere else, maybe with James or someone new. I couldn't let that happen. One afternoon, I found myself at the house, waiting for her to come home. I had arranged for a private investigator to stake out the driveway, just in case she tried to make a run. When she finally pulled into the driveway, my heart started pounding again. She looked tense, eyes darting everywhere. She got out of the car trying to act casual, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. I didn't say a word. I just stood there waiting. When she entered, I confronted her directly. I laid out everything, proof of her affair with James, the transfer of the $300, her secret plans. Her face went pale. She tried to deny it, said I was crazy, that I was just jealous. But I had her cornered. I told her that I knew she was planning to leave, that I had evidence of her trying to hide money, and that I was prepared to fight her in court. Her lies started to crumble under the weight of the truth. She screamed, called me names, told me I was a jealous, insecure idiot. She insisted she never loved James, that it was just a fling, that she was just exploring her options. Yeah, right. I didn't buy it. She was planning her escape, and I was determined to stop her. That night, I called my lawyer again and finalized the divorce papers. I also contacted a financial advisor to start the process of recovering the stolen money and protecting what was left. But I wasn't done. I knew Emily would try to spin this however she could, probably telling her friends she was the victim, that I was abusive or controlling. So I decided to come clean, to tell my side of the story in a way that would make her look bad. I leaked some of the evidence to her closest friends with a brief message. This is what she's been hiding. I wanted her to lose her support system, to see how many people would turn against her once they knew the truth. The fallout was swift. Emily's friends started questioning her, some even confronting her directly. She tried to deny everything, but the photos, the bank records, the secret emails, they told a different story. Her reputation took a hit and she became more desperate. She started threatening me, claiming I'd ruin her life if I kept pushing. But I knew I had to stand firm. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. Looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I used to believe in loyalty, trust, the idea that marriage was forever. Now I see that sometimes people are willing to destroy everything for a quick thrill or money. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I won't be a victim anymore. I'll fight for what's right, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts. The coming court battles and financial disputes are going to be rough, but I'm ready. I want her to pay for what she's done, not just for the money she stole, but for breaking the vows we once shared. I don't know what the future holds now, but I do know one thing: I won't let her ruin me. Not anymore. The court date finally arrived, and I remember feeling like I was walking into a battlefield. Emily looked terrible, her face gaunt, eyes red, trying to act like she was the innocent victim. She threw out every excuse she could think of, saying I was crazy, that I had fabricated evidence, that she had been pressured or manipulated. But I had the receipts, the recordings, the bank statements, and the witnesses. The judge saw through her lies, and I could tell she was starting to crack under the weight of her own deception. During the proceedings, my lawyer laid out everything clearly: the affair, the stolen money, her plans to leave, her attempts to hide assets, and her lies to friends and family. Emily tried to deny the transfer of funds, claiming it was a business investment. But I presented the bank records directly showing the $300 transfer to James's account. That was the moment her facade started to crumble. The judge looked at her with disbelief, then at me, and finally made a ruling that I hoped would be fair. The majority of the property and remaining funds would be awarded to me, and she'd be ordered to pay back the stolen money. The aftermath of that ruling was chaos. Emily's face twisted in rage, and she started yelling that she'd fight me in court again, that she'd ruin me if she could. But I wasn't about to back down. I'd fought hard for this, and I knew I had the law on my side. The judge also ordered her to stay away from James, citing the evidence of the affair, and warned her about further financial misconduct. It was a victory, but it felt hollow, like I'd only just begun to pick up the pieces of what she'd destroyed. In the weeks that followed, Emily's behavior grew even more erratic. She kept threatening to sue me for half the property, claiming she was entitled to a share because she'd been married to me during the investment. She insisted I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful divorce settlement, even though the evidence clearly showed her betrayal. I knew she was desperate, trying to manipulate the system, but I was prepared. I had all the documentation, and I was determined to fight her every step of the way. Meanwhile, I started rebuilding my life. I moved into a new apartment, cut ties with her friends who blindly supported her, and focused on my work. I also took time to reflect on everything I'd been through, how trust had been shattered, how greed and betrayal had nearly destroyed me. It was a painful lesson, but one I refused to forget. Never ignore the warning signs, and never let someone take everything you have without a fight. One day, I got a call from my lawyer. Emily had filed a counterclaim, demanding half the property and accusing me of abuse, trying to paint herself as the victim once again. I shook my head, exhausted but resolute. I knew I had the truth on my side, and I was ready to face whatever came next. I hired a counselor to help me process the emotional fallout and to regain my confidence. I realized that, despite everything, I had to move forward, better, wiser, and more cautious. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this nightmare. I learned that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and that money can turn people into monsters. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, capable of fighting for myself and my future. The betrayal hurt like hell, but it also pushed me to stand up and take control. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know one thing for sure. I'm done being a victim. From now on, I'll be the one calling the shots. And no one, not even the woman I once loved, will take that away from me again. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much my life has changed. Sometimes for the better, sometimes painfully. I never thought I'd be the guy who gets betrayed so deeply, who has to fight tooth and nail just to get back what's rightfully his. But I did. I fought, I stayed strong, and I refused to let her or James destroy me completely. The thing I keep coming back to is how much trust can be broken in a single moment. Emily was supposed to be my partner, my confidant. Instead, she turned out to be someone I barely recognize, someone driven by greed, lust, and selfishness. Her lies, her manipulation, her betrayal, they all taught me a harsh lesson. Never ignore the signs. And never take your security for granted. People can surprise you in the worst ways, and sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back with everything you've got. The process of going through the legal battles, the financial disputes, the emotional roller coaster, it's been exhausting. But it's also made me see what really matters. I've learned that I don't need someone who lies and cheats to be happy. I've learned to value myself more, to trust my instincts, and to stand firm in the face of betrayal. I've come to understand that revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming my dignity, my peace of mind, and my future. In the end, I've moved on. Not entirely without scars, but stronger for having survived this ordeal. I know I'll carry the pain and the lessons with me forever, but I also know I won't let it define me. I've learned that sometimes you have to take control of your life, even when everything seems to be falling apart. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. So, to anyone out there dealing with something similar, trust your gut, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also reveals your strength. And in the end, that strength is what helps you rebuild what was broken. I may have lost a lot, but I've gained clarity, resilience, and a new sense of self-worth. And that's something no one can take away.